afternoon, everyone. My name's Britton, and we're going to start this webinar in a couple minutes. Give everyone just a minute or so to jump on, and then we'll start the presentation. All right, it's 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Britton, and I'd like to welcome you to today's live webinar, Gaining a Competitive Advantage with Remote Access, brought to you by Western Digital. First off, I'd like to introduce you to our presenter today, Matt Benyon. Matt is a Senior Content Marketing Manager with Western Digital. Before Matt begins, I'd like to draw your attention to the question box on your screen. Here you can type in your questions, and Matt will try to get to as many as possible throughout the webinar. So feel free to jump in and ask questions at any time. Also, we'll be giving away a WD MyCloud to one lucky attendee. The MyCloud is one of WD's consumer products. It's a personal cloud device that allows you to save everything in one place and access it from anywhere without paying monthly fees. The winner will be chosen at random and announced at the end of the webinar. So now I'm going to hand it over to Matt. Matt, take it away.
Hi, Britton. Thanks so much, and thanks everybody for joining us on a Tuesday afternoon. Today we're going to talk a bit about remote access and some of the cool things you can do with it that'll give a competitive advantage. And as Britton mentioned, we are going to do some live demo, and we'll start with some slides and go through some of the key information, but we'll kick into a live demo of a mobile app as well as a desktop app that enable remote access. So if there's questions throughout, please do feel free to ask the questions as we go through the slides. We'll try to get to questions at the end of the slides, but there is also time for a Q&A towards the end of the presentation for anything that has not been answered. So we'll go ahead and get started. If anybody has any problems, please let us know, and we'll do our best to make sure you can follow along. So we've talked already a bit about the agenda here, but we'll go through some of the trends. We'll talk about some use cases, and then we'll actually go through some solutions to enable some of the neat stuff we're talking about. But of course, before we start, let's talk about what is remote access. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get remotely access your files, and remote access is really just the idea of storing it in one place and accessing it while you're in another place. And as I said, there's options such as public cloud. The example we've given there is Dropbox. There's corporate clouds, and here at WD we use SharePoint. But then we're also going to talk a bit about personal clouds, um, and then you'll be able to understand some of the benefits there. The other thing I'll mention is a lot of stuff is changing as the devices we use every day are changing. So we want to make sure we let people know that the different solutions are compatible with smartphones and tablets, a lot of times via mobile application. Next slide here is why. Why do we care? And a lot of it really has to do with just, again, the way people use the devices and information in our lives today. And remote access is great because it lets you access files and documents from any internet connection pretty much anywhere in the world. It also enables people to be more responsive. So I know there's a lot of times we'll get a request for a file, whether it's a large file like a video or even just a presentation. Being able to get the request, turn around and fire off a copy of a file right away is real handy. The other thing which is nice is as video becomes more of an important format for a lot of what business and consumers do these days, we're all a lot of times handling large files as well. And with remote access, it can be very easy to manage them. Streaming media is another also neat thing, and really this is more about the precious space that we have in our devices. And so many devices we use today, tablets, smartphones, and even new computers, are using flash-based storage such as SSD, and in these cases, downloading a file and filling the device with it in order to share the file can be a bad thing when you're out of room. Um, we also want to really just increase productivity, and I know it's hard to carry a laptop everywhere you go and find Wi-Fi, so doing more with always on and always connected devices is great. There's also times when I'm on the road and I've got a hot piece of content that just can't wait till I get back, and being able to share that or upload that right away is handy. Okay, uh, taking a look at some of the other trends, I think I know for me, I'm a 100,000 mile a year traveler. I spend probably 100 hotel nights a year on the road. And taking a look at some of the data for the most recent, we find that travel is on the rise again. Certainly, as the bubble burst in 2008, it declined, but we're back to some peak travel, uh, and there's just a lot of people going to a lot of places. So, this is actually worldwide airline information: 826 million passengers in 2013, um, and the data was really centered in the U.S. So it's 642 million people um, flying domestic and 184 international. Um, there's also a that means a lot of people, and that's 9.7 million flights in 2013, almost a billion miles total traveled. So that's a lot of time in the air, and that's a lot of different destinations. When we do take a look also at the we're a hotel, over 900 million hotel rooms in 2013. 60% of that's leisure, and we'll talk about remote access. It's really great for business, but there's a lot of benefits as well for leisure travelers, and people don't only need access to their stuff when they're working. A lot of the stuff that I deal with is as much for fun as it is for work. Um, there was also some pretty neat stats. I mean, business travel is really kind of rebounding since the bubble burst, but it's really important to be effective and to be face to face. And we find a lot of people are really trying to continue to have face-to-face interactions with customers. Execs believe it's critical for sharing ideas, staff communicating, job performance, but it's just not going away. And even as we get to some of these digital ages, and while we're doing webinars, I mean, there's still a lot of value in face-to-face and having these kind of relationships with customers. And remote access gives your ability to be face-to-face. It combines the face-to-face interaction with being able to access everything and share right away. Um, one of the other trends that we'll look at here is, and I think most people are probably intuitively finding this out, but desktop and portable PC growth has really stopped. And the growth that we see nowadays comes in the form of smartphone and tablet. Uh, everybody's got a smartphone, and a lot of people are starting to carry tablets. These are great devices for doing a lot of consumption. They're typically not great for creation of productivity files and things like that. But we really want to take the things that we used to do with their desktop and portable PC and start to do more of those things on our smartphone and tablet. And thanks to remote access, we're going to enable a lot more productivity capability on these smart devices. Any questions so far? I think we're doing okay. Okay, let's jump forward. So let's talk about some use cases. And actually, every one of these use cases is a true story. And I have started with a true story about myself. When I'm not at WD, I spend all of my money and all of my time taking photos. This is actually a picture of me standing in Lake Jones in Canada. And I just am on the road all the time. I do weddings on the side, I do other events. Um, and remote access has really changed the way I am able to manage my content and share my content. So for me, I've got a NAS that has about 260,000 files on it. These are photos. When I'm working with clients and talking to a potential client, we'll review some of the similar work in the past and select styles and photos that people like. I do all this nowadays on a tablet, and the experience of touch is great. Um, it's hard to do 260,000 photos on a tablet because the tablet won't fit all that. But I've got several terabytes of remotely accessible storage that has every file I've ever photographed. And we can access and share low res versions, high res versions, and even to go into some use cases beyond what we're talking about here. I can also share access to some of the storage with my clients so they don't have to have copies on their computers I've always got a copy for them. So for anybody that has a deep catalog of content that they have in an archive that you just never know when you're going to need to access it, but there's times when you do need to pull it, having an archive that is accessible from any device anywhere is really helpful. Um, One of my favorite slides. So this is a slide that we got back in 2011, and as if we extrapolate the data to 2014, it's even more telling. But as of the time we got this slide, there was 3.5 trillion photos taken, and 380 billion were taken in 2011. That's about 10% of the photos ever taken were taken in 2011. And when we do extrapolate that to 2014, that number comes up to almost 20 to 25% of the photos ever taken were taken last year. So there's a tremendous amount of content that's being created. And for photos and videos, these are actually some of the number one drive filling formats of content. So we really have paid a lot of attention to it. There's some photo use case stuff again that we won't get too deep in, but we do create thumbnails. We do deal in small 1024 by 768 versions of the file to make it easy for your data plan not to blow up. Um, so we do we spend a lot of attention on photos simply because it is a very dominant file format, and it's the number one remotely accessed file type. This next story is actually about my boss, Jazzbeer. And Jazzbeer is the general manager of our business unit. We were actually traveling, launching a product in Europe, and in a hotel breakfast we were having, we walked over to get coffee. We came back, and his backpack that had everything in it was stolen. And it was his computer, all of his portable drives, his tablet, everything except for the phone in his pocket was gone. And we had a meeting starting in an hour. And what Jazzbeer was able to do was access, using remote access, all of the files that he had prepared for the trip. And he simply emailed a copy of that to a colleague. The colleague used his own computer. And thanks to remote access, we were able to have the meeting, even though we'd lost everything from a computer perspective. Uh, and this is really an important concept as well. With remote access, I don't have to have everything with me all the time. I don't have to carry that portable drive with me. It doesn't have to be on my personal computer that I carry with me. There's a lot of different things that can happen to computers that causes data loss, whether it's a natural disaster, computer virus, software corruption, human error, or even a hardware malfunction. This doesn't even mention theft, and we certainly talked about that. But with so many risks to only having your content on the device that you're carrying, this is a great way to mitigate some of that risk and ensure that you've got the right content with you no matter what. And I think we're okay here for questions. If you guys have questions, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll take those towards the end. Another true story. So this is about a coworker named Christy. Christy is a product marketing manager at WD, and she works in a core team with a lot of other contributors and collaborators. And a lot of times we will work on a presentation. Sometimes we have 100 meg, 300 slide presentations, which are really a collaboration from a bunch of people, and we make a master presentation, and then we distribute that to the various sales teams, and it's used and updated quarterly. So with so many people collaborating on generating some of these same files, um, there's a lot of times in the process of collaborating where we need to share content back and forth. But then there's also the delivering the final product and publishing out to the team. And one thing that we've noticed, and I don't know if this is about salespeople or this is just a regular human truth, uh, putting something on your corporate SharePoint or whatever solution you use, even when it's published centrally, a lot of times people just need that personal phone call to be able to request something and be able to get that quick. I know for us, we get a lot of requests for files that we've already pushed to a SharePoint folder or whatever, but people don't always have access to a VPN or a corporate network. And being able to just get a quick email with that file attached is a great way to keep momentum going and not lose downtime when people request content. Okay. Uh, we'll jump through this slide, and then I think there's a question here we'll try to jump to. So we've also done some fun searching. There's a lot of great infographics out there. This was one that I particularly liked, and there was a couple things in here And again, as we really start to move towards always on and always connected smart devices, taking a look at the business traveler, and they're connected to Wi-Fi almost everywhere they go. Um, there is 95% ownership of smartphones. Tablets has gone from 33% in 2010 up to 64%. So business travelers are really quickly moving to tablet. And again, really what we want to do is give some of these tablets and smartphones the capability of doing things that we used to only do on our computers. And in order to increase productivity, it takes a long time to boot up a computer. You're not always connected to Wi-Fi, but with smart devices, it's such an instant gratification. Uh, we actually see that 75% get more than 6 hours of sleep per night due to increased productivity of mobile devices. And for productivity, I mean, sometimes that's different things. It can be as simple as email, but when it comes to managing files and taking presentations or other types of content, that all has to be stored somewhere, and remote access gives you the ability to enjoy all that from your smart device. And we did talk a little bit about the leisure traveler, and this is actually also a true story about a buddy of mine who is a prolific father of six. And when he gets to the weekend time, he still gets to use remote access to keep everybody happy. And here's an example of a weekend getaway. Uh, and a little bit of chaos erupting in the back seat. And I think probably most people can relate to this use case. But with remote access, we're able to take all the kids shows and MP3s and any type of file. Really, remote access is about the plumbing and making sure it's a great experience. The type of content can be just about anything. So in this case, the leisure the leisure use can be great with video, and remotely accessing video can definitely be tricky. You have to have fast plumbing, and we'll talk about our fast plumbing here in a bit. But if you've got great remote access, you should be able to remotely access any type of file. And video is definitely the most difficult to manage simply because of the file size. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the solutions, remote access solutions that WD offers. And we are going to talk today about a family of product called MyCloud. And the MyCloud family of products are really about creating a cloud of your own and being able to store content on this device at home and under your control. You can manage everything about it, but then be able to enjoy that content from anywhere using just about any device. Now we've got a few different flavors of MyCloud products, and we'll briefly get into that. But let's take a minute and talk about some of the remote access technology. Um, Inside the MyClouds is WD's MyCloud personal cloud remote access technology. It's a mouthful. We do some pretty neat stuff here. The problem with some of the personal cloud in the past was the complexity of setting it up. And it used to be that you would have to configure a router, you'd have to open ports. If you're an IT guy, this is no problem. This is stuff that you probably do every day. But for mainstream use and home use, this can be a little bit more complex than most people are ready to handle. So we use something called UPnP, and that in with this technology, our MyCloud products will configure your router for remote access, and you don't have to do anything. So simply getting this up and running is very easy. It'll ask you a couple of simple questions, but the MyCloud products will all talk to the router and take care of this for you. Now, not all routers support UPnP. As an example, Apple's Time Capsule does not support UPnP, and this is probably the biggest router out there that does not. Um, and for people that don't have this, it's okay. We have another methodology for connecting, and you don't have to have any special knowledge to do that either. There is an advantage to a router that's directly connected. We'll talk about that in a bit. So we do something for remote access that's all linked to a mycloud.com account. And with this account, you're going to have a username and a password. This will be an email address and a password. And with that, you'll be able to access any of the MyCloud technology from all the devices through one easy app. It makes it very easy to do. We also wanted to talk a little bit about encryption because thanks to Edward Snowden and the NSA, um, another really key advantage of personal cloud as opposed to some of the public clouds or corporate clouds is security. And uh, having a device on your home network, having a secure device, I mean, the data can be encrypted on the hard disks themselves. So if somebody broke into your house and physically stole the unit, they could not get data off the disk. The data on your network is secured by your router, and so it's as secure as your network is. The remote access connection is secured, and we use 128-bit AES encryption, which is a very secure way to make sure that content is not being intercepted or uh, checked out while you're remotely sending content. Looks like we got a couple questions here. We'll try to jump through some of these. Uh, okay, recently purchased an EX2, getting remote access to the servers. Uverse and Comcast was hoping the device has a portal. Okay, we'll try to jump through that one here. This is a long one. Sorry. Okay, we'll get to some of these here towards the end. I know you guys have some good questions bottled up here. They're going to take me a minute to read and get through, but we'll keep moving and try to get to all these in the Q&A. So, and I think this is very relevant to the last question I was just reading actually. So at WD again, we have two methods for remote access, and the first is this relay mode. And with relay mode, the data goes from the MyCloud device on your local network and relays the data through our data center down to a on the road WAN connected device. In this case, we're showing a mobile app and a computer. And with relay mode, the disadvantage with relay mode is um, you're basically sharing your internet connection coming out of the cloud with a number of other users. And so your upload speed to the cloud is going to be some number that's defined by your ISP. And if you got a fast internet connection, it's fast. But the download speed, which is the experience that the user on the road will have, is going to be limited by the bandwidth of the cloud. And that's a variable thing. It just depends on how many people are accessing it at the same time. Um, the alternative to relay mode, and relay mode is perfectly fine. I use relay mode on some of the devices here at the office simply because they're behind a corporate network and the corporate IT guys don't like me opening ports on their stuff. But the device I have at home is in direct mode, and at home I have a really fantastic internet connection. I use, in my case, at how my Cox, and I have I think 100 megabit down and 50 to 60 megabit up, which is fast. And that means that when I'm on the road, my iPad is talking directly to my MyCloud, and the data that's transferred between the two runs at my upload speed. And because that's fast, I have a very, very fast remote access connection. So relay mode is fine for just about anything. Direct mode is going to be great if you've got your own fast ISP connection at home. This is a tricky slide, so I'm going to jump back and make sure we don't have too many questions and I haven't confused too many people. I do see a couple questions here, but I'm going to try to take these here in just a minute because we don't have too many slides left. Um, so talking about the different flavors of cloud, we're talking personal, public, and this is private, but it could just as easily be corporate cloud. Uh, Public cloud is great. I use the public cloud. 66% of our users who we polled want to use the public cloud and the personal cloud. And throughout this webinar and in all my time at WD, we have never suggested anybody not use the public cloud. Um, it's just there's different tools for different things, and for the personal cloud has some advantages, which really comes to cost and privacy and security. I would say is the biggest advantages, but there's also some capability on the home network, which is something that the public clouds can't offer. So if you were shopping for 2 terabytes of cloud storage, remotely accessible storage, um, it would be hard to get that much from the various cloud services. And this is just a sampling of a few. But as you can see, you're basically renting storage if it's from a public cloud. Um, and those really have some capabilities, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do if you got to drive on the local network. The performance on a local network versus remote. With the clouds, everything is remote. With a personal cloud, while you're at home or at the office, your connection to that storage is going to be uh, measured 60 to 90 megabytes a second. And when you're connected to the cloud, that drops quickly down to megabits a second. So it's just a whole class different of performance when you're on local versus remote. With Personal Cloud, you've got a tremendous local presence. We also integrate our solution, by the way, with public clouds, and this is a cool thing that we'll show when we get to the mobile app. As I mentioned, I use Dropbox, I use Google Drive, I use iCloud, I use OneDrive. So I actually use all of these particular services. Uh, Dropbox is my big one. I still pay Dropbox that $100 a year for 100 gigs, um, and I can access my Dropbox content as well as my personal content using our application, which is nice. Um, Other than that, we'll jump in here. So this is the MyCloud app. There's a lot of capabilities in it. Again, we'll do a live demo of this here in just a moment. But with the MyCloud app, it's available for iOS and Android. We used to have a BlackBerry and Windows Mobile version for a previous build, but we're now focusing on iOS and Android. So those are available through the Google Play Store and the iOS app stores. Um, and with this application, you can do what you might expect: browse your files and folders. I can download these files and browse that content offline. I can email and share these files either as a link, which is really nice for big files, or as an attachment if it's a small enough file. Uh, and as we do the demo, we'll go through this. But my Dropbox will get full. OneDrive, particularly since I don't pay for more space on these different other clouds, those clouds get full. And because our application integrates all these clouds, I can easily move content from one service to the next and have the best of both clouds. So we also have an open with feature that allows me to use our fast plumbing to open a file with an application besides ours. And as an example for me, raw files are what I usually live through, but a raw file is not something that the iPad knows how to handle, but there's other apps that do. So you can extend the functionality by using other apps to open these files. Um, and as you can see as well, we have over 4 million downloads of this, but we have a 4-star rating of the current version of this app that was 2,500 reviews. So this is really one of the best experiences at WD we've been able to craft. Was all around the iOS and Android side of things. All right, I'm going to really do my best to try to get through some of these long questions here. If it's too long, I'm going to wait towards the end here. I have a MyCloud 16 terabyte. What backup strategy do you recommend? Currently RAID 0. Again, we'll try to get to those. Is it possible to use other encryption systems like TrueCrypt? Good question. Uh, Not inherent to the device. So Eric asked a question: is it possible to use other encryption systems like TrueCrypt? Maybe, but not using our applications. I don't think it's integrated. I'm not sure that we are able to do that. So I don't know for sure, Eric, but I expect probably not. Um, Another question. Also, how can you recommend to store and search, e.g., photos, create a folder, name it, and after place and time when photos are done? Good question. So Baijan asked a question about how to store and search. And one thing I'll say that we don't have today that we're going to be adding in an upcoming build is the ability to do search throughout the entire drive. I use a combination of apps, and if you're really specifically talking about photos, the app that we haven't talked about yet is called WD Photos. And WD Photos does feature search, but the best way to do it is just to organize the content on the device and in the folders. I use date stamp folders to help me to do that. But the WD Photos app, if you're looking for photos, is got a search capability with dates and basically the metadata of the device. So it's a cool way to do that. Mark asked a question about, can you explain how the data is encrypted? If someone steals the unit and connects it to their computer, how is it they're not able to read the data? Mark, good question. There's different levels of encryption that the device has, and these different devices, basically you could encrypt the drive. And when you encrypt the drive, you basically need to type in a password to unencrypt it. And if the device powers off and powers back on, you got to type in that password. And if you do not type in the password, even pulling those raw drives out of the computer and connecting them to another computer, the data is encrypted on a hardware platform. There's a cryptographic processor inside each of the drives that will actually lock the data and the bits on the drive itself. So because we do that in the drive itself, we're able to really make sure your data is protected. Christos, how can I access my files from the internet without having the WD apps at a random workstation? That's also a great question. And today, we do have a desktop app that you would need to install. We are working on some other ways. So, if, as an example, you're at a hotel computer, you could just go to a web browser. Uh, that we don't have a release for that yet, so I can't talk about the timing of that. But that's something else we're looking for. We do know that the request is to be able to use a random workstation. So, with the MyCloud solution today, we're not able to do that, but if you stick with us, we'll be showing something here pretty soon. Another question from Dimitar, who I've emailed with here. I want to open a file using a smartphone or tablet. I want to open the file by scanning a QR code and avoid login procedure and similar to procedure. Yeah, uh, the good thing, and I'll do this demo here in just a moment. There is a very simple process of doing it. I think scanning a QR code might even be more difficult than the way we do it, but uh, we don't have a QR code methodology, but we'll show you how easy it really is. Uh, Bill asked a question, where do we find this on the unit? So a lot of what we're talking about is in the web dashboard. You can enable it through the web dashboard, or you can just find the, okay, so relay and direct mode is the question. Yes, relay and direct mode are on the dashboard, and actually we'll jump in and I'll show you where that's available in just a moment. Okay, good questions. I'm going to jump forward and then we'll try to get to some more of these here in just a moment. Um, Now, we were really inspired by our mobile application because it was getting such a great feedback and a lot of people were really happy with it. And what we wanted to do was try to make the computer as easy as the tablet and smartphone. So, uh, in the past, we had a Webdav remote access technology, and it was a lot of clicks. It really took a long time. It was about 90 seconds to get connected. And if Java was updated, it would send you through a Java update process that was a little bit irritating. So with the new desktop application, and we'll do the demo, to connect to any of these devices, it's simply launching the application. If something was encrypted, it would ask me to enter my password. But that process of launching the app is what's going to allow my user to access and authenticate these secure storage devices. We'll go through some of that. A lot of the stuff you can do with the desktop app is exactly the same as the mobile app. There are some differences, but fundamentally, you get that fast plumbing to your content. You can email links or attachments. It's all drag and drop. You can use it to edit documents, and if I had a PowerPoint stored remotely, I can simply double click the presentation. It's going to open up. I can make changes to it, hit save. It saves it to that remote location, and I close the document, and I'm done. So we really do a lot of work to try to make it easy, but we also know people want native navigation or web navigation. That's some of the stuff we're working towards. Um, Taking a look at some of the different products we have, and we're not going to beat these too bad, but certainly you can go to wd.com and check out a lot of the different personal cloud solutions. If you're looking for my first NAS that's going to give me a lot of great capabilities, the MyCloud's awesome. I mean, it runs a dual core ARM processor. We're getting 80 megabyte a second reads and about 50, 60 megabyte a second writes. So it's pretty fast as a NAS. Uh, but what makes it truly exceptional is the remote access. We also have some great DLNA for streaming content around the network. But this thing is a remote access machine. Also getting a ton of great coverage, and every week here we do a lot of work with the press, but we get an email that sums up this week's reviews, and there's just a lot of great feedback coming in from the press on this thing. The Amazon reviews are also pretty great, so we're very happy with the way this product's being adopted. Now, for people that need a bit more, and whether it's more space or more security, we make something called the MyCloud Mirror. And the MyCloud Mirror and the MyCloud, kind of the same. This is obviously designed to fit two drives. And with two drives, I can either have extreme capacity or extreme protection, and it runs in a RAID mirroring or RAID 1. Um, and in that way, whatever's on disk A is exactly duplicated to disk B. And if one drive fails, all my data is still safe and remotely accessible. So, my Cloud Mirror, again, we preach data security and data protection a lot, but having a RAID 1 storage solution is the first best step. Now, we make a sister product called the MyCloud EX2, and basically we have some white products, and then we've got some EX series products. The EX series products have a lot more small business Soho features in them to make them usable on a corporate network. They work great with Active Directory, but they also just have a lot more kind of advanced network options. So if you're an IT guy and you really want to enable a small work group of users or even a group on a domain, the MyCloud EX2 is great. It runs a Marvell CPU. It has a bit more system memory. This is about a 90 megabyte a second read, 65 megabyte a second write kind of a drive on the local network. All of these devices use the WD's personal cloud technology. And so you'll be able to remotely access all this with the MyCloud apps we've been talking about. And for people that need the most or even more, we have a MyCloud EX4. The MyCloud EX4, once again, similar as far as capability, but it comes in a metal enclosure with a toolless, trayless design, and this is a great way to get up to 16 terabytes worth of capacity in even a RAID format. So these are the different methods that we offer to actually store the content. We're going to switch, and I'll jump to questions here before we do the demo, but we're going to switch to the live demo and show you how the software experience is for all of these different hardwares. Um, Any plans for a Surface app? Good question, Trey. I was actually we have a Surface app for our devices. It's just not for remote access, and I was the product manager for that. And we will certainly keep looking at that, but currently, not yet. We did build an app. It's the WD app for Windows 8. Go take a look at that, but the remote access is not in that yet. Um, Another question, same question. When will WD have an app that works with Windows RT? I have numerous employees with RT. We do have an app. It doesn't do remote access, but that's a great question. Again, sorry, Jeff. Um, EXT2, 6 terabyte, small graphic firm. I would like to be able to finish up work and later at home continue working on a project. Uh, Sorry, Matt. I think your question got clipped off there. Guys, you got a lot of great questions in here. Okay. I'm going to do my best to keep this moving. Again, I know there's some good questions waiting in here, so we'll do some demos and really try to spend some good quality time in the Q&A. I'm going to jump out of the presentation, and we are going to do first the mobile app demo. So let me minimize this, and hopefully everybody can see okay. So what I'm doing here is I've got a iOS simulator on my computer, and we're running iOS 7.1. And here we have the MyCloud app. I dragged that into my tray here at the bottom. So once I launch this application, simply launching the app will actually send the command to authenticate and log into those drives transparently in the background. So you don't have a lengthy process to log in remotely. And the whole idea was I want to be able to launch the application that logs me in, and then I just start navigating the content, and I'm immediately up and running, which is great. But there are additional ways to be secure, and in this case, I've already added this device. I'm going to go ahead and remove it, which is pretty easy to do, and re-add it. And as you can see, this has got a number of users already set up. I'm going to choose my own, and I'm going to now log into this device. And so you can see I still have a layer of security that's specific to my user. I'm able to come in here, and I've got all my content available here. So as you can see, I've got a number of devices here added. Adding them and removing them is done through pressing this button. Um, I can add devices. I can add cloud services. I can use my mycloud.com account and then log in with whatever the email address and password I've used. This would give me access to all of the devices that are associated with my account. And I personally have several of those. So that's a great way to manage multiple devices just with a single sign-on. I found a device that was on my local network, and configuring that is incredibly easy. But with these cloud services, I can actually go into my cloud account and check out content that's in my public cloud. If I wanted to, I can actually swipe across. This is a Ninja Swipe. And with Ninja Swipe, I can take this piece of content and move it to my personal cloud. If I forgot what file I've got, you can check here and it'll show, oh, okay, it's just that one JPEG. I'm going to go ahead and put that in public and I'll paste it. So this way, it's really easy to move stuff between the various clouds. That was in Dropbox. We can do the same thing between these other cloud services. But I, as a user, very rarely now actually go into the Dropbox app because we have integrated it here. We actually have more features for Dropbox than Dropbox has for Dropbox. So it's a great way to engage with the public clouds. But certainly as you get into the personal cloud, it's also a good experience. So the presentation that we were actually just looking at today um, is in here. And if I wanted to, I can simply click on that. I can access the PowerPoint and enjoy that content through our application. Normally, and because we're using the simulator, it doesn't work, but I could click here and one of the options would be open with. And I could use Keynote as an example to go through this presentation. Once I was done changing the presentation in Keynote, I can actually upload that back to the My Cloud using the same open with command, and I will open with My Cloud app and then I can upload it. So that's a cool thing. That's actually also how you can upload content that you get via email. But speaking of email, I'm going to go ahead and email this presentation. Uh, and because this is a simulator, it's a little bit different, but normally there would be a big, beautiful graphic from My Cloud showing what we're doing, what we're sharing. And um, again, this is actually attached. I see, that's why. If you wanted to send the email as a link, and I think, oh, perfect. Email as a link. Here we go. So this will generate a link. I can download this. The person I send this to is going to click on that link, and this file will transfer from the My Cloud, in this case, the one that I've got at home, to the other person wherever they are. So it's not relaying through a data center. Um, the My Cloud itself ends up getting assigned a tremendously long DNS name for all you technical people out there, and we do the authentication in the cloud, but we don't actually get between the file transfers. We simply use our cloud to authenticate, um, so that we're not involved with that as much as we can. And the person that clicks on this link can access that file, but they can't access anything more than that file. And while this can be forwarded, it does expire in a week, so it can't get out in the wild for too long. Um, there are some other options here, and I'll just ninja swipe across. This is download, email, uh, cut or move, copy, delete, and rename. So I can actually rename files as well here, which is a nice feature. If the content has been downloaded, I'm able to go to the downloads tab again. If I was on an airplane and I wanted to edit this while I'm on the plane, this is how you can accomplish that. Um, but otherwise, that's pretty much it. So we've got quick plumbing is one of the best features. One other thing, upload. Of course, the simulator hasn't got any photos on there, but if my mobile device was to become full, I can go and choose to upload photos and videos. I can access the camera roll. I can select all that content, upload it to the My Cloud remotely, and in that way, my tablet has more free space, and I can continue downloading or doing other things. So pretty neat. Uh, Pretty neat. I assume there's probably a bunch of questions already bottled up for us here. Um, but if there's no questions about the mobile application, I'm going to go ahead and jump to the desktop app. Okay. So the MyCloud desktop app, again, was really trying to be inspired by the mobile application. I think it's still a little bit more complex than the mobile app, but I can do fundamentally the same stuff. So I'm going to connect to the MyCloud, and here I've got that same pile of content. And if I wanted to, I can simply drag something out of the window to download it. It was a small file, so it didn't take long. Um, we can do a bigger file here. It's very quick. So we use our same fast plumbing, all the same plumbing with a lot of the same capabilities. So if I wanted to, I can simply click here to cut, copy a link, delete, rename, email, or open the content. And again, I can double click on my presentation, edit it, and hit save, and it will save it to that remote storage solution. So I don't have to worry about where that content's at. Um, we also do some hot files. So in this case, if I recently access a file, This will stay cached locally and synced with the next time I get to an internet connection in case I do make some changes. So there are a couple differences between the desktop app and the mobile app, but these are starting to change. We're going to see these two start to be more and more similar. Okay, that was a quick look there. I am going to jump in now and try to bring everybody with me to the Cloud EX4, at least to show where some of that remote access capability is located. There was a good question about that earlier, and we would love to show you. Oops, there we go. So if I click on Cloud Access, I can see the admin users connected, and I'm connected with that relay connection. And you definitely want to avoid this if you can. It's not a big deal, and if you're only able to have a relayed connection, you'd still have a great connection to your content. But if you do have a really fast connection you pay for, you will get some extra performance out of a direct connection. So if you can, that's the way to do it. Now, again, I've got these here under relay. If I wanted to change that, it is a bit tricky if you're not comfortable opening ports. Otherwise, you can definitely do it. And it's a port forwarding, so I haven't got any services going on. You can add port forwarding services and customize that. So that can be done in this way. That's pretty technical. So if you need help doing that, let us know, and we can certainly work with you. Um, that was the end of my demo. There's a bunch of questions bottled up, so I want to jump into some of those here if we can, uh, because I think you guys have patiently been waiting. Okay, this one is a great one. So Mark asked a question. I recently purchased an EX2, and there's difficulty gaining the device through remote accessing the device remotely through several modems, UVerse and Comcast. So hoping to use the device as a portal for my clients to be able to upload documents to me, but if there's not a seamless way to gain remote access for them without having to reconfigure their modem and firewall, is to be looking at ways to make it universal. Yes. Um, yes, we are. Mark, the question was about trying to simplify the process for people accessing it remotely. And it should be easier than that, even the way it is now, but we are also working on ways to do that. Uh, my dad is doing photography in a full-time way, and he's got clients that he has to give access to these devices. And I would say the real complication as we have it today is you do have to use our desktop or a mobile application to access this if you're offsite and you're just a client. We're working on a web portal that will give people the ability to do it a little bit more simply. And again, that's just around the corner, and I don't have a date for it, and I'm probably not even supposed to be talking about it. But I hear you, and we are working on a solution for that as well. Um, and I think we actually just covered this as well. There's another person asking about remote access without using our application, and that was from Eric. Eric, yeah, we know we're working on some other ways to access this as well. Um, Local, when you're on the home network, obviously you can use native OS navigation. Otherwise, remote is only through mobile or desktop app for now. Um, okay, we have another question from Baijan about I have a MyCloud 16 terabyte, which is great. What backup strategy do you recommend currently a RAID 0 setup? So it's kind of a big question, and there's a couple of backup things we can talk about here. We include smartware, and smartware will work on Windows computers and take all that content and move it to the MyCloud products for you. It's a little bit nested in a series of folders, so it's not a great way to manage that content. We also work with Time Machine. We create separate shares for these, and you can do that. The MyCloud products also have USB ports and some software inside that let you back the NAS up to another NAS so that you can actually have two copies. Um, but for the most part, as an example for me, I use Time Machine on my Macs. I use Smartware on my computers. Because it's on the network, the second I come home, open the notebook, turn it on, it finds that I'm on the network, it discovers the storage, and it begins to automatically back up. The other thing I would say is being in RAID 0. RAID 0 is awesome because it's fast, but it's like running with scissors. And 16 terabytes is a lot of data. Um, and if one of those drives was to go, then you'd lose everything. So the first thing I'd say is back up your 16 terabytes or move to a RAID 5. Um, And if you have other questions, feel free to send me an email and we can go through some details. Okay, someone says, Rob says, I purchased my EX4 to free up my computer's hard drive space. I populated the EX4 with two 4 terabyte drives that mirror each other. Use Windows 7 on my PC. Over the weekend, I moved all my photos and documents, about 500 files. Not all the properties copied. I chose to continue. Noticed that these files were copied successfully, but there were duplicate files in the recycle bin. I don't think so. And Rob, it's a great question. So in the process of moving files, there was an error message popped up about losing some properties. I notice some of that sometimes, and I think it has more to do with some of the Mac. And I'm not sure if you're using a Mac, but I've seen it on my Mac, where some of the hidden properties and hidden files are for some reason not coming over. I don't know the answer to that, but if you want to take this info that's up on the screen, my email address, we can certainly try to look at that for you. I don't think you lost anything. It's properties, and there's actually a service on the MyCloud EX4 you should look at called Webdav. You can enable Webdav, and Webdav is a lot about the also pulling in some of the properties and other attributes of the files that are sometimes not copied in some other format. So look at enabling Webdav in the settings dashboard of the MyCloud EX4. In the X2 6 gig 6 terabyte, I have a small graphic firm. I'd like to be able to finish up at work and later at home, continuing the project. And Matt, I think we do this really well for you. I think your question was cut off. Um, so I do this quite a bit, and we can certainly enable that use case to remotely access those files as well. If you can get a chance to finish that question, I would love to read the rest of it. Okay, Michael Jennings. On the X4, how do you turn encryption on? Great question. Let me see if I can't show you. That's a good question. I feel like I should be able to answer that one. You got me. This is the fun of doing live demos is the questions that stump, and I know it's in here. So the encryption. You know what? That's a great question. It's got to be in here somewhere. We'll have to take a look at this and get back to you. I can't remember where it's in here, and instead of fumbling for everyone to watch for 10 more minutes, I'll have to get back to you, Michael. On an iOS device, can you save an attachment directly to Dropbox in a specific folder in Dropbox? I don't see how you can do this. So it's a little bit tricky, Robert. That's a great question. And this is about email attachments. And what you would do is if I was to get a connection to I'm sorry, if I had an email with an attachment, and the attachment was, as an example, a PowerPoint. Once I open that uh, PowerPoint attachment up, it's going to use an app to look at it. And that app will have an open with command. And you will choose to open that attachment with the MyCloud app. Once it's in the MyCloud app, I'm able to, and we'll do this as an example. The big trick is getting it to appear in downloads. And if I open a document with Keynote, and whether it's a fresh document or an email, I just got an email to me, I'll open it and then choose open with, choose my cloud app. That'll put it in downloads for me. And then from here, I will copy it to Dropbox. I'll make a new folder called uploads, and I'll go in here and hit paste. So that's how you can choose where to put that file. So that's a great question, Robert, and it's a little bit tricky, but the idea is open with and choose the MyCloud app, and then you can put it wherever you want. Dwayne has a problem downloading the MyCloud app on his iPad. That's just hosted from the App Store, so I'd say try rebooting your iPad or make sure you're connected well. There's no special tricks from the WD side. This is just like any other app in the App Store. So if you're having a hard time with that, I'd say try some other apps, see if those are also choked or whatever. But it's not going to be a WD app thing that we can help you with. Is the data on the MyCloud encrypted, even if you use non-WD hard drives? Eric, that's a great question. I don't think so. I think you've got to have encryption in the drive, and all the WD drives have that. I don't know if it's possible with non-WD drives, and the EX series of products is compatible with non-WD drives. Um, so I don't know the answer to that. We can try to find that out for you, though. Yes, Darian asked a question. I understand the MyCloud does, but can I directly use iTunes? Example, removing it from the laptop. So, Darian, I'm not sure I followed that, but I'll do my best to answer what I think you're asking. We can play DRM content using our app. So if you have iTunes content that you purchased, you could put movies as an example on there, use our application, browse that content, play that content, and because it's a DRM protected file, it'll actually try to open in Safari if you're using an iPad, um, and play that there. But we don't. We're really plumbing, and we've got a couple nice other features. But if your device can play the file, then we're not going to get in the way of that. We're just going to bring it to your computer from its remote location. Um, let's see. You can also store movies, music, other content on the MyCloud. We have an iTunes server in the device, so your computer could launch iTunes but not actually use any of the storage on there. I do this a lot with my Surface tablet, so I've got a drive that's got all my MP3s on it. I can access that locally or remotely. I don't have to have all the iTunes music in the iTunes folder. So that's my shot at answering your question. Uh, Got it. So, Matt, this is the other half of your question earlier, and this was about 100 megabyte graphic files taking too long. If you can get that direct connection going, it shouldn't be that bad. The other thing I would suggest I do, as an example, I have a lot of content duplicated, so I keep my Dropbox content in sync with my MyCloud content, and uh, you know, if I'm in a position where my content's in a relay mode, you may not get any better performance from Dropbox. But a 100 megabyte file, it just takes time to download, and I don't know that we're able to change much of that. It's really more about your ISP, and making sure you're in that relay mode. But Matt, I want to make sure you get taken care of here. So if that doesn't help you out, please take my email info down, and we will follow up with you to make sure you're taken care of. Todd, are you going to demo? Yep, I think we just did that. Matt, can I remotely mount the MyCloud on my remote Mac? Uh, you know what, Matt, give me an email and let's make sure we go through all your different use cases. But yes, you can. How can I prevent losing data on my iSCSI partition? I've lost data in a couple instances. Eric, that's a good question as well. Um, your iSCSI partition hopefully is in a RAID array, so that the content there is safe. But that's a good question. And again, if you can take down my info, we'll try to get you some support to make sure you're configured the right way. Christian, if my Cloud EX4 is configured for remote access but it no longer works, how do I set up relay mode? It should just go back to relay mode. So there's nothing you have to do to enter that. I would say just disable it and then re-enable it. The other thing I'll mention is there's a firmware update coming out for the MyCloud EX4 today. And this has a number of bug fixes and other things. So if you get a chance when you get back to that MyCloud EX4, try just rebooting it. But for sure, install that firmware update. And I would guess that if it's misbehaving in some way, that'll address a lot of that. Um, but it should just work. It should automatically kick into relay mode. But again, please take my email down because we'll make sure you're getting taken care of. Bought a new X4, 12, 2 months time. Red light keeps flashing. The volume's degraded each time. I have to rebuild it again. It's taking a lot of time. You definitely shouldn't see it degraded like that, Maroon. It shouldn't be degraded all the time. So again, please take down my email address and we'll try to get some support for you to figure out what's going on there. But again, we do have the new firmware coming out today. And one thing that the firmware does do is it increases, or it makes the RAID rebuilding even faster than it's ever been. So is a solution to the symptom, not a solution to the problem. We want to make sure you get taken care of. So please do send me an email. Scott Miller, can I use the MyCloud NAS to open a file through another software program like the NAS on the local network, like the computer? Yes. So this is, Scott, this is just storage on the network, and we've got a bunch of fancy ways to get to it remotely. But on the local network, you can access this stuff um, using any application you want. So it's no problem at all. And that's true for any of these, including the X2. Todd, hopefully you're able to stick with us and see that. Will the web navigation remove the remote access issues that can occur with some routers? Mark, I would say also that firmware update today, take a look at that. But the remote access, uh, yes, I mean, that's really a lot about that relay mode we talked about. And Matt, another good question. Yes, can I sync to MyClouds? Yes, the answer is yes. In MyCloud Mirror, MyCloud EX2, and MyCloud EX4, you can sync those one at home and one away, so your content's in 2 locations, which is awesome. Todd, EX4 rocks. Great, great, great. Wow, a lot of questions, guys. It's really great. On an iOS device, can you save an attachment directly to Dropbox? Yes. We did talk about that. EX4 NAS does not allow file search capabilities the way you can search a name in a Windows folder. So, Rob, the only search I was saying we don't have is in our app, our mobile app and our desktop app. So we're adding search in the app, but you can search the drive using Windows or any other application that has search. Jeff, is there a way for our employees on RT to remotely access the X2 using browser? Not yet. Help with port forwarding. Okay, Paxton, send me an email. We'll make a video for you that shows you how to do some port forwarding. Yes, Bill, we actually have a concierge line, and this is true for everybody here. If you have an EX product or any MyCloud product, we have a special phone number that will get you a premium support. And let me see if I've got the flyer that shows what that number is. But it's basically a phone line that'll take you directly to level 2 tech support guys that specialize in MyCloud and making sure people are set up. And I'm going to quickly try to rip open a couple boxes around me to see if I can't find what that phone number is. And I do have it. So if you, I'll type this in this slide for people to be able to copy. Concierge number is 855-556-5117. So if you guys have any questions, and for some reason I'm unavailable or you're just need to get something done right away, give these guys a call. This is a concierge line. We have, again, premium support for this thing, and they can do, in some cases, they can remotely access, and you give them permission to, but they can help you with your computer and set it up for you and make sure everything's going for you. Travis, can we set it to sync with servers shared drive, with the server shared drive? Yes. So there's a lot of replication options and backup options within the NAS. So I can actually have one NAS back up to another NAS, or using DFS. There's a lot of cool things in here. Can I access my files from the internet without having the WD apps? I think we talked about that. Not yet. Yes. So Paxton asked another question. I've had warnings on my EX4 from heat. Can this warning be emailed to me? In the EX4, if you go to the web dashboard, there's an area in settings under notifications, and you can choose to get email alerts or SMS alerts, which is a very cool feature. So if you wanted to, you can get that as well. Jonathan, great question. So link aggregation, and this is something we haven't really talked about here, but the MyCloud EX4 has got some pretty potent capabilities because it's got the two Ethernet ports. With the firmware update that came out today, by the way, we're adding Samba 3. And with Samba 3, you can get multi-channel without having to do link aggregation. And for people that are listening, link aggregation lets me use 2 Ethernet ports to get additional throughput. It's a pretty tricky move, but anyway, so there's different flavors of link aggregation. I don't actually have a preference on which one I've used, so I don't know if I can answer that one for you, Jonathan. But check out Samba 3, because with the Samba 3, you can even get some better performance than any of these link aggregation things, and you don't need any special hardware to enable that. Wow. George, you've got a ton of MyClouds, huh? 1, 2, 3 terabyte, EX2, EX4. How can I do a backup for my MyCloud 1, 2, and 3 terabyte? So it is a bit different between the MyCloud and the EX series. And let me open up the MyCloud here on my computer, and I'll do my best to show you. Oh man. Okay, so on the MyCloud, it's actually called SafePoint. And what you're going to do is go into SafePoints, you create a new SafePoint. You're going to choose to scan the network. Uh, this will probably work here, but I should discover other MyCloud devices on the network, and then I can choose one of those to back up to. Um, and you can actually do it with a shared computer as well. So this ought to find a number of things. And I apologize, I clicked on that right before it did what we were hoping to do. But I'm going to, okay. So you can see I can choose to back up the content to different devices on the network, uh, and that's how you do that. Gil, good question. Not really. We have an app on Windows 8, but it's really just for consuming content on the local network. It doesn't have remote access. Uh, Okay, so Paxton had a question. In the future, do you know if we'll be able to stream video, not just audio, via iTunes? I have an Apple TV that I'd like to stream video stored on my EX4. Got it. So Paxton, that's a really savvy question. So the iTunes server that we put on these NAS devices is an open source thing that doesn't handle video. So your question is really about video. You have an Apple TV and you want to stream video to it. You know, we want to do the same stuff, and the problem is really the Apple TV. We actually make a product called WD-TV that came out before there was even an Apple TV, and it was just to play video stored on an NAS or a USB drive. So unfortunately, the Apple TV is not really capable of doing that, and/or our open source iTunes server can't. But if you really want to get stream video content, uh, yeah, WDTV is not a bad option. You can use the Apple TV and mirror your iPad, but it's not a great way to do that. WDTV is the way to go. Okay, Bill, a question was about Windows too. Again, turn on Webdav. That might take care of that problem, Bill. Robert, do you foresee any accommodations to allow iPhoto to work on the X4? Synology has a similar feature. We're looking at that. iPhoto is a tricky thing. I mean, it's really a database and sort of a package file, and having a real elegant iPhoto on a NAS is tricky, simply because that database can be written to by multiple devices. Um, so it's tricky, but we are looking at it. So it's a great question, Robert. Pointers on making EX4 faster. Robert, I'm actually working on a video. The first thing I'll say is go download this firmware update, because there's a number of things in the firmware update that are going to make the EX4 faster. Um, but I'm working on a video that we'll put on our YouTube page that's all about optimizing the EX series products for performance. Um, Todd's got a question. If my password's not working, what do I do? That's a good question, buddy. Send me an email and let me follow up with you, because I don't know what to do if you're unable to access that. If it's an encrypted password, you might be in big trouble. Once you lose an encrypted password, you've got some bricks, so hopefully it's not that. How do I safely disconnect a USB device from the EX4? Um, Man, these are some good questions, guys. So on the EX4, and I apologize as we drift a little bit away from remote access questions into just some basic NAS questions, but that's fine. So on EX4, I'd have to have that connected to do it. So I'll tell you what, why don't we set up another webinar for EX4, and we'll try to tackle some of this stuff, because I feel like this is just a little bit off topic, but there's some good questions. Michael, if you'd like, we'll follow up with you as well to figure out how to do some of that stuff. Lots of questions. Okay, getting close to the end, guys. MDX2 6 gig small graphics firm. We got that, Matt. Sorry. My wife has an iPad and an iPhone. I'd like to keep them in sync. Wants to get away from iCloud. I'm moving photos to my EX4. Are other painless ways to mimic the rest of the sync process? It is a little bit of a pain. I got to admit, man, moving content certainly between all these devices can be tricky. Um, I don't know if there's a silver bullet to this process of just migrating and managing data. I do the same thing for my significant other. I have to try to do that, and I don't think there's any tips that we've got for ways to take the pain out of that. Unfortunately, Michael. Um, Herb's got a question about an online inventory application. Herb, there's a on the EX series of products we have an app store, and we can look at a Linux app that might help you do that. But inherently, the device doesn't run uh, apps in that same way, and we want to make sure you get taken care of. So please do send me a follow up email, and we might have a solution for you. Uh, okay. Okay. All right, guys. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna have to jump through some of these questions here. Um, and Mark, yes, there's a firmware update for EX2 and EX4. Email address again. Sorry about that. My email address is matthew.benyon@wdc.com. So feel free to send me an email that way. Um, Uploading, Isaac. There's no good customer uploading trick right now for the MyCloud EX series of products. Um, so they would have to use the desktop app or the mobile application. Okay. I think we got through most of these questions, guys. I really appreciate it. I know there's probably a few questions we didn't get to, and I apologize for that, but we are running out of time here, so I do want to be sensitive to everybody's time. Um, with that, again, please take a look at this phone number 855-556-5117. This is that concierge line. If you have questions that we didn't get answers to today, give those guys a call. They're really good at helping people get that content figured out. My email address is Matthew, MATTHEW BENNION @WDC.com. My Twitter handle is at BENNINOWD, and oddly, my Benino is my Twitter handle, Benino WD. So with that, we do have some other cool stuff for you. We have got a discount going on, and I know a lot of you guys already had some MyCloud products, but we are running a discount that runs until the end of June, and it's going to give you 15% off MyCloud EX2 and EX4 products, any capacity. So the coupon code is MCEX15. There is a link that I've got here, which is really hard to copy down. But if we'll send this presentation out after the fact, and you can certainly follow it then. But you can go to the WD store, store.westerndigital.com. Just use the coupon code MCEX15 for 15% off until June 30th. So thank you very much. I also, in this presentation, by the way, for people that want to consume some of this offline, we've got some of the mobile application screenshotted in. So that's a good way to look at this later. And with that, I'll turn it over to Britton to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, thanks for a great presentation, Matt, and thank you all for your questions. Those were all great questions. So I'm going to announce the winner of the MyCloud. The winner is Scott Miller. So Scott, I'll be reaching out to you to get your contact information. And again, if you have any questions for Matt, feel free to shoot him an email. Otherwise, thank you all for attending, and have a great rest of your day.